Happy new moon in Sagittarius. Today's date is December the 1st, 2024. In the Gregorian calendar, that is 12/1/2024. And it's a Sunday. I love it when the first of the month falls on the first day of the week on a Sunday. It just really makes things awesome, and especially when there's a new moon involved, it is really magical. And today we're going to talk about the Sagittarius new moon. Sagittarius actually comes from the Latin term archer. In the Latin lexicon, it actually is arrow makers, arrow smiths, the constellation, and the archer. It also is belonging to an arrow, good for making arrows, bowmen, a sort of light armed troops, both foot and horse, usually in the plural, which is really awesome because in the Mazzaroth, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is typically in the plural because it represents abundance, and that's something we're going to talk about later on throughout these videos, and so I'm looking forward to going into that. The first mention of archer is actually in Genesis 21:20. And God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. And that archer has two different definitions and two different meanings. The first one being Hebrews 7:2-3-5. Rabbah, a primitive root to increase in whatever respect, bring in abundance, abundantly. Archer, be in authority, bring up, continue, enlarge, excel, exceeding, exceedingly, exceedingness, grow up. Heap, increase, be, belong, be, give, have, make use, many, a time, any, be, give, give the, have, more, so like give more, have more, in number. Ask, be, sow, gather, over, take, yield, much. Greater, more, make to, multiply. Nourish, plenteous, process of time. Soar, store, thoroughly, and vary. It also has the definition Hebrews 7:1-9-9. Quashasheth, a bowman, archer, intensive as denominative from Hebrews 7:1-9-8. Remember that, we're going to come back to it later. In the original sense of bending, a bow for shooting, hence figuratively strength, or the iris. Arch, archer, arrow, bow, bowman, shot. From Hebrews 7:1-8-5, a primitive root properly to be dense, that is tough or severe in various applications. Be cruel, be fierce, sir, make, grievous, be, ask, be, in, have, seem, would, hard, harden, labor, laborly, thing, be, sore, be, make, stiff, and necked. So be stiff and necked, or stiff-necked. I think that's really awesome and interesting, considering in the Mazzaroth, Sagittarius is holding the bow, right? He's holding the bow and arrow, and he's a mythical creature. The top half of him is a man, and the bottom half of him is a horse, which is interesting because that kind of goes into the Latin meaning a little bit. Also, Archer is like this definition of archer isn't all the archers in the Old Testament. I actually looked for archer in the whole Strong's Concordance, and it was found 14 times, all in the Old Testament. The first one, besides the first mention here, Genesis 21:20, which actually is talking about Ishmael. The lad that it's talking about in that Bible verse is Ishmael, which is Abraham's firstborn son, that was cast out, and isn't what a lot of people would say. It's like he's null and void of the covenant of God, which I'm not necessarily sure I believe that fully 100%, quite frankly, because God is the creator of us all, yes, and I understand how like Jesus represents God's firstborn son, and then so that kind of null and voids Adam being his first son, like his first creation. But it clearly says that this lad, this boy who the angel heard crying for God, and was told, the angel told Hagar, which is Ishmael's mom, your son's going to increase in whatever respect. He's going to bring in abundance. He's going to be in authority. He's going to bring up. And, that's one thing, that he wasn't out of the covenant. He's still a nation, and that's exactly the promise that Abraham was given of God. Like, your seed will be numbered as the stars in the sky and the sand of the seashore. And so we can't really discredit that, and I hope that makes sense. But the second time that this is mentioned is Genesis 49:23, and that has a completely different meaning than Genesis 21:20. Also, it's mentioned in Judges 5:11, and that has a same meaning that ties in with one of the definitions of Hebrews 26:71, which is sorry, my battery died, but I do have the Genesis 17:20. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him, and I will make him fruitful, and I will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. So we do not ever want to discount what God has said, just because we have an imagination about God's master plan, which sometimes is not in correlation with our plan. So, and then Judges 5:11 goes with 26:86, which is a part of the definition of Hebrews 26:71. 1 Samuel 31:3, the two times it's archers mentioned in that verse. 1 Chronicles 10:3, both times archers mentioned in that verse. And 2 Chronicles 35:23 is Hebrews 33:8-4. So as you can see, all of these are a different verse. So we shouldn't just take the verse that we're mentioning in Genesis 21:20 as all of the archers mentioned in scripture, because that's just simply not true. 1 Chronicles 8:40 is mentioned Hebrews 1:8-6-9 and Hebrews 7:1-9-8. Hebrews 1:8-6-9, Jeremiah 51:3, archers mentioned in that verse. In Hebrews 7:1-9-8, Isaiah 21:17, and Isaiah 22:3 is mentioned in that Hebrews 71:98 archer in both of those verses. Then Jeremiah 50:29 and Job 16:13 has the word archer in it, and is Hebrews 7:2-8. So those are fascinating studies if you want to further your research on your own time. I do have those all written out, but to save us time, I will not do that at this time. And if you want to go into Hebrews 7:2-7, that's also an interesting study, which ties in with Hebrews 2:8. Hebrews 7:2-8. What I find to be really interesting about Sagittarius, this new moon, the fact that, you know, Archer is the first mention is talking about Ishmael. All of these fascinating things, how Archer in this first mention is actually abundance, you know, to increase in whatever respect, to bring up, to continue to enlarge, to excel, exceeding, grow, all of those fascinating, you know, abundant things. Like we had just previously mentioned, Jupiter is about abundance. It's about protection. And we're going to talk about that later. But I do want to read Genesis 9:12 through 17. And God said, "This is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud, and I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the water shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh, and the bow shall be in the cloud. And I will look upon it, and that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth." And God said unto Noah, "This is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth." I find that so fascinating, because my bow, or that the bow that's mentioned at least 3 times in that verse, is the same Hebrews 7:1-9-8. In the original sense of bending, a bow for shooting, hence figuratively strength or the iris, archer, arrow, bow, bowman, shot. A primitive root properly to be dense, that is tough or severe in various applications, you know, to be cruel, be fiercer, make grievous. Be, ask, be in, have, seem, would, hard, harden, labor, laborly, thing, be sore, be, make, stiff, stiffen, and stiff-necked. And, you know, talking about how God told Abraham, your children will be as the stars in the sky and as the sand of the seashore. And, you know, how he says to Israel, you know, you guys have stiffened your neck against me. You know, you have hardened your heart. And so don't be a stiff-necked people. All of those interesting things. And right now is a wonderful time to self-examine, to do a self-audit on ourselves, to make sure that we are in correct relationship, not just with God, but with ourselves, with our goals, with the will of God, and with those around us. And in the cloud, which is mentioned 4 times in Genesis 9:12 through 17, is Hebrews 6:051, Anan, a cloud as covering the sky, that is the nimbus, or thundercloud. Cloud, cloudy, from Hebrews 6:049, Anan, a primitive root to cover, used only as a demonative from Hebrews 6:051, if you want to deepen your study, to cloud over, figuratively to act, covertly, that is practice magic. Bring, enchanter, meonimin, observe, observer of times, soothsayer, sorcerer. And token, which is mentioned 3 times in that short verse in Genesis 9:12 through 17, Hebrews 2:26, oath, in the sense of appearing a signal, literally or figuratively, as a flag, beacon, a 6 monument, omen, 6 prodigy, evidence, etc., mark, miracle, in, sign, token, probably from Hebrews 2:25, uth, a primitive root, properly to come, that is impliedly to assent, consent. And another Bible verse that was brought to my memory while reading this is Revelations 10:1 through 11. And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, And a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun, and his feet as the pillars of fire. And he had in his hand a little book open, and he set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot on the earth. That makes me think of Aquarius, which Pluto is now in Aquarius currently. So that all has a deeper meaning as well. Verse 3, and cried with a loud voice as when a lion roars. And when he had cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices. And when the 7 thunders had uttered their voices, I was about to write. And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered, and write them not. And the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hand to heaven, and swear by him that lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things therein are, and the earth and the things that therein are, and the sea and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer. But in the days of the voice of the 7th angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he hath declared to his servants the prophets. And the voice which I heard from heaven spoke unto me again, and said, go and take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel which stands upon the sea and upon the earth. And I went unto the angel and said unto him, give me the little book. And he said unto me, take it and eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, but shall be in your mouth sweet as honey. And I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it up, and it was in my mouth sweet as honey. And as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter. And he said unto me, you must prophesy again before many peoples and many nations and tongues and kings. And I find that fascinating because this angel was clothed with a cloud, and that cloud is the Greek, obviously, because we were just reading in the Hebrew, because this is the New Testament, so it is in Greek, is a nephele, properly cloudiness, that is concretely a cloud, and that also comes from nephos, a primary word, a cloud. And then rainbow was upon his head, and that's iris, which is fascinating because that is also mentioned in the Hebrew 7198, or the iris. And when I was looking that up, it wasn't like the iris of the eye, like I thought, or the iris of a flower. It was this. As the symbol of a female messenger of the pagan deities, a rainbow, iris, rainbow. Which is interesting because it's like the messenger of the gods, and even messenger of Mercury, which is fascinating, especially since the video I got earlier today is, you know, Mercury, the moon, and the sun all in the same area in the orbital Mazzaroth with this new moon. So it's just very interesting. And that comes from arrow, E-R-E-O, not like arrow, but very, very similar. And in certain tenses, to utter, that is to speak or say, call, say, speak of, tell. And it comes from reo in certain tenses, which prolonged form is used. Perhaps akin or identical with 4482. Through the idea of pouring forth, to utter, that is to speak or say, command, make, say, speak of. In Hebrews, Greek 2036, a primary verb used only in the definite past tense and others being borrowed. To speak or say by word or writing, answer, bid, bring, word, call, command, grant, say on, speak, tell. And when we go to that, that was the G2036, this is the G4482. Reo, a primary verb for some tenses of which is prolonged form is used to flow, run as water, flow. And I think that's interesting because that actually goes in with one of those verses for arrow. Yeah, under 1 Samuel 31:3, 1 Chronicles 10:3, and 2 Chronicles 35:23. That word for archer is Hebrews 3:3-8-4. Yara, a primitive root properly to flow as water, that is to rain, transitively to lay or throw, especially on an arrow, that is to shoot, figuratively to point out, as if by aiming the finger to teach. Archer, cast, direct, inform, instruct, lay, show, shoot, teach, teacher, teaching, through. So I really believe that God is calling us to examine ourselves. Are we in the Word? Are we speaking truth in life? Are we living in word, not just a word only? Are we being who we're called to be? Are we believing that magic is a form of enlightenment and excitement and a tool that God uses for our benefit? Or are we thinking very small-minded, very worldly about the things of God? Because if we are thinking very small-minded about the things of God, then God cannot do a great work. I'm being called to the Bible verse about Jesus. And, you know, a lot of people say, well, if it's God's will, he would do it. If it was God's will, God is a gentleman God. You know, it's our will. We have free will in this earth. We get to choose life and blessing or death and cursing. And everything in God is yes and amen. So whatever we're calling forth with the power of our tongue, you know, life and death are in the power of the tongue. Those who love it shall eat its fruit. That's being a messenger. And so we're called to change the way we speak, to change the way we think, to repent. And God tells us, you know, he told a lot of people in the scriptures, you know, only believe. Didn't I tell you if you would believe that all things are possible, you know? And so it's when you bring all the little intricate details together, it makes a lot of sense. And in Matthew 13:58, Jesus could not do many works there. And he did not many works there because of their unbelief. And that's the barrier between us and God. It's like, where is our mind at? What messages are we sending to God? What do we believe about, you know, not just the message he has given us from his messengers, but what do we believe about what we're saying to God? God works through people as well. And so how do we treat those who are around us? And how do we make this work in a fulfilling manner? Because essentially that is what practicing magic is all about. You know, Jesus is going to come on a cloud. And I don't necessarily think that means Jesus is going to come down from heaven on a literal cloud, like something you would see in Dragon Ball Z. But it's something much more deeper than that, and something a little bit more figurative than that, and potentially even more literal than something we can think of with our mind. And I would really do believe that the Mazzaroth is exactly a tool that God is going to use in the new heaven and new earth. You can find the word Mazzaroth in Job 38:32. Can you bring forth Mazzaroth in his season, or can you guide Arcturus with his sons? Can Job 38:32, can you bring forth Mazzaroth in his season, or can you guide Arcturus with his sons. And that word, Mazzaroth, is the Hebrew 4216. And remember, he was talking to Job about this. The definition is constellations and zodiac, or the zodiac. It is, there's no direct Greek equivalent in the Strong's Concordance for Mazzaroth, as it is a specific Hebrew term. However, related concepts of celestial bodies can be found in Greek terms, like astron is the meaning for star. The term Mazzaroth refers to the constellations or the zodiac signs. It is used in the context of celestial bodies and their movements, which were often associated with the passage of time and seasons in ancient cultures. I will link this Bible Hub link down below. But now is a wonderful time for us to see the bigger picture of things, to find our name written in heaven, to see the blueprint that God has laid out before us, so we can choose the good path. God has thoughts of good and not of evil, of peace, and to give us an expected end. Jeremiah 29:11. And we're called to choose the higher path and not choose the lower. And I thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you stay blessed. I hope the Lord blesses and keep you. And love bullets. Also, if you want to join our newsletter, I send it out once a month. I've actually haven't done it the past couple months. So the one I'm sending out tonight is going to be pretty hefty. But I try not to overbear or overstep my boundaries with that newsletter, so I'm not going to be taking up too much of your email space, so feel free to join the link down below. I also have a 15% off Elevated Faith link. I love their jewelry. I'm actually currently wearing this God is greater than the highs and the lows, and this is a part of a necklace set with this blue and gold chain. And they're really great because you can wear them separately, you can wear them together. And I also have a covenant link if you want to be a part of what we're doing here. Feel free to send us a message. I am also opening up my personal natal chart readings. And if you would like to participate in that, then email the Awakened Missourian at outlook.com or booking Awakened Missourian at outlook.com. I'll have that posted down below in the description. And I thank you so much. I hope you're having a wonderful beginning of December. I hope you have a wonderful December, and I will see you in a couple weeks during the new moon or the full moon.